Good evening. My name is Gene Bergman. I'm the Ward 2 City Councilor here in Burlington, and we are here with Burlington Progressives TV with two, I think, going to be amazing guests. Ed Baker and Bella Fern, both involved in recovery and harm reduction, and this really important issue related to community health, public safety, personal safety, you name it. And we're going to jump right into it. I just want to preface it. It's cold and snowy out, and you know, people are living rough out there. There's a lot of hard times that are out there, and we're just going to have a conversation. So, let's start with you, Ed. What I would love for you to do is to introduce yourself, and I know that you are actually a friend of Town Meeting TV because you have the Addiction Recovery channel.
I do.
And so people should be aware of who you are, but for those who aren't, introduce yourself and give a little bit of a personal story.
All right. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for having us, Gene. I'm very honored to be here. My name's Ed Baker. I'm a public health activist. I can tell you that I've injected drugs in public places. I've had the experience of having someone bang on the men's room door when I was right in the middle of injecting drugs a number of times. It's not a fun place to be.
Could I ask you how old you were around that time?
67, 68, 69, 70, in my late 20s. You know, I was homeless on the streets of San Francisco for a number of years. I had what you would call today a severe drug use disorder. But I've also had the experience of being the proud recipient of the Vermont Alliance for Mental Health and Addiction Recovery Jack Barry Award for Excellence in Recovery Advocacy in 2021. So, I mean, I tell you both these things just to point out, you know, if a person stays alive long enough and gets the kind of services they can get, they need, they change, and I'm a great example of that. Today, I'm just a full-time activist, and I want to say one other thing because you mentioned it being cold outside. We lost a Vermonter froze to death.
I saw that
yesterday in Barry.
Yeah.
And this is unacceptable,
Yeah.
and that should have never happened. So I want to emphasize that.
Yeah.
And I want to ask the viewing audience to be very mindful of that as we move along today.
The saying goes, there for the grace of God go I. If we are lucky, we get through our lives and get to be an older person. I'm 72, so I know that any little turn at a certain point could have and would have made all the difference in a negative way. So I really appreciate that. Bella.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You don't do this TV stuff all that often. This is exciting.
I'm excited to be here. I feel like this is off my Burlington bucket list now.
There you go. No. This is just one of the first of many. It's important. You know, Town Meeting TV provides us with an alternative to a corporate media that basically has everything monetized and homogenized. And this gives us a chance to talk to people from the community. So you are a harm reduction activist or worker. Talk to us about your job and what you do and your place in the community, and any other parts of that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have lived in Burlington since 2020 and in Vermont since I was 9 years old. So I've loved Vermont. This is my home. This is my place, and I love Burlington.
You grew up
very
in
dedicated to it.
Essex?
The Champlain Islands.
The Champlain
actually.
Island. Okay.
Yeah. Love the Champlain Islands. And started working for an organization called the Vermont Harm Reduction Advocates about a year ago now. And I'm also a community organizer with the Burlington Cleanup Crew. We meet every Thursday at 7:30. We met this morning. I was out in the cold, and we go around the city and clean up syringes, as well as leave out harm reduction kits and give hand warmers to folks, have conversations with people in the community about substance use. So that's a little bit of what I do.
Right. So, like, what did you see out there today?
This morning?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't see as many people as we used to, or as we normally do, just because it's colder
Right.
and really wet. Those that we do see, they're really happy to get some hand warmers, get a really positive interaction. We still have we have such a dedicated volunteer base. It's baffled me. I've been doing a lot of volunteer events in many different forms, and this group is so uniquely dedicated. We had, I think, 10 folks this morning on a chilly morning.
Right. That's,
Yeah. And we went all over the city. The majority of the places that we pick up syringes, or we find syringes, we call them hotspots, are mostly private abandoned buildings around the city, which, we see them in a lot of these places, unfortunately.
Right.
And these are places where people are using, where they feel like they're not going to get caught using, and a lot of the times these are really secluded places, excuse me. So unfortunately, sometimes we also find the sites of overdoses. So we find used Narcan in these places. We find squeeze, what are they called? CPR mask bags and things like that. So we see a lot of different things. But I think overall, it's a really great way to get out there. And I spend so much time in meetings and thinking to myself, am I really making a difference? Like, does this really do anything? And every Thursday, I get to meaningfully say that I do something to help my community.
That's really important. You see changes in what you've experienced. Obviously, weather will make a change, but in the time you've been doing this since
29 weeks, so the end of May, I think. Yeah, definitely we've seen changes. I mean, we've fostered relationships with people in the unhoused community. We also put harm reduction supplies in the Little Free Library at King Street. They have been fantastic in partnering with us, and I replenish that probably weekly. And we've definitely seen less syringes, especially as the cold weather months come. But we also really see, Burlington, we have a syringe litter issue, but man, we have a litter issue. There is tons of litter in these spaces. So what we really get to see is areas that are really cleaned up in the city that we didn't get to see before. And that's really, really heartwarming. And I will also just circle back and say that every time I put those harm reduction kits in a Little Free Library or a Little Free Pantry on King Street, they're gone every single week. So we are getting those resources out to people who may not be able to get those resources in other places.
I did one of the cleanups just that one time, and I was actually struck by how few syringes I found at that particular day, but how much trash. But there, it actually was surprisingly little, and as a recipient of constituents who were always complaining about stuff. And rightfully so on many of it, but the idea that that Burlington is going to hell in a handbasket, and you can see it in all the trash and all the this and all the that. It was nice to be out there on the street and go, not so much. At least today. At least today. And that's important, because I know that there are issues, right? And you got to deal with them, but. You can only really, in my mind, deal with them when you look at them straightforwardly with just like what is happening, and just be able to observe that. Ed, so talk to us a little bit about the work that you're doing on a regular basis.
Well, first I want to recognize Bella and her team. They really have been doing a great job. So many of our people in Burlington are so deeply concerned about what's going on, and they do have empathy, they have compassion, they feel a moral imperative to do something, and then they don't know what to do. So something like Bella's organization gives regular people this kind of opportunity to do something, and I think that's extremely important, and we need to do a lot more. But the will is out there. People are hungry for information. They're hungry to be led. They're hungry to be taught. They're hungry to, join together and do something. And I think it's our obligation, our responsibility, to be feeding them the right kind of information. That's why I'm on the show. To be giving them the right kind of information to combat stigma, to talk about science-based, data-based, experience-based fact, truth, what's really happening here, and kind of cut through this fear that we see. And fear-mongering also you'll see in some of the media and from some of the politicians and certainly from some of the citizens. And we have to really kind of understand where that's coming from, but also with compassion really battle against it. I mean, one of the things that Bella brought out was this idea of isolated places. And if you look at the Vermont Social Autopsy for 2023, a very, very high percentage of people who died of unintentional drug overdose, there was no bystander. So people looking for places where they're not going to be detected,
Yeah.
where they can, get done what they need to get done without getting arrested or harassed or whatever. And unfortunately, with the drug supply as contaminated as it is with lethal poison, the people are dying at unprecedented rates.
We'll get into the OPC, the Overdose Prevention Center, in a little bit to talk about how that fits into that picture.
Yeah. As for me, I mean, to answer your question, I'm just always 24/7, trying to do something about this. I have my show. I'm constantly going to webinars. I was at some very interesting webinars in Canada, seeing some of the things that they're doing there. I just got finished watching something in Austria and what they're doing there. There's a lot happening globally. We're pitifully behind some other countries that are moving forward with this, and that's because of stigma and entrenched systemic stigma that we're all victims of. Anybody born here is a victim of it.
Yeah. You've looked at Canadian work, and I mean, we're very close, but culturally there is both a real similarity but a real difference. How do how do we start to think of and then address the stigmas that you're seeing? What are your thoughts?
Well, I've been focused on it since probably 2015, and I've done a lot of education on it. It's been something that I've taken on as like a major task in my life. Really, it's the #1 cause of death in America. I mean, we have 80, 90, 100,000 deaths per year from overdose deaths. These people, this particular population, will stay away from help that they know they need because help is delivered with stigma and with expectations that they can't meet. So stigma is what keeps people away from coming for help, not coming for help because there's people to be in positions where they die. And we've become calloused to this. We have 80, 90, 100,000 deaths per year, and we just talk about this like it's okay to talk about. Well, it's an unparalleled public health emergency that is undeclared. It's hideously complicated by systemic stigma and the dehumanization of the people who are dying, and nobody's accountable for it. I don't get it. We have done a really good, in the negative sense, job in this country for forever, really, of othering huge populations of people. You can just see the fact that you can enslave tens of millions of people. The fact that you can decide that you are just going to call people garbage. You look at whole populations of people who are just fleeing from war and famine, right? I'm now thinking about the Somalis, right? Who did nothing different to come to this country than my grandfathers did, right? Escaping Russia, in the turn of the 20th century. Nothing. And to have the President of the United States call them garbage is an indication of something that's very deep-seated culturally in the country. So I think that, part of what
we have to do. And I know that you and I go to the Unitarian Universalist Society here in Burlington. It's an important place of spirituality and refuge for me. And we have, as Unitarians, this one of our founding 8 principles is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And for me, the reason to have you on, the reason to talk about this really hard subject, is at its core, for me, the belief that there is inherent worth and dignity for every human being, and no matter how they're acting or struggling. I have to be able to do that, even when I don't feel like it, because maybe I'm getting abused or I'm getting, insulted or assaulted or however that is, and all sorts of things, happen that make that hard. But stepping back and being able to go, okay, this is something that we've got to, at the base, be able to deal. So let's chat about let's talk about recovery and harm reduction and the kind of work that's out there in the community on both of those. And I pair them in part because I have heard them pitted against each other. I heard at a city council meeting it be said by somebody that, well, we shouldn't be doing harm reduction. What we really need is recovery, and I want recovery services. Okay, so you're the experts on this. I'm just the politician.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Well, I think I've also unfortunately seen that, Gene, and it's just such a shame because there are brilliant minds in both of these spaces, and people that have been affected by the overdose crisis and substance use in such a personal way that there's real passion. I did not mention this. I think it's worth mentioning. I had lost a cousin to an overdose a couple years ago. She was only 23. She passed away in her car. It absolutely devastated my entire family, and it really ignited, with grief, also a lot of motivation for me to do something about this crisis. So just kind of to circle back, I think us working together there's only going to be benefits to it. Sure. And substance use disorder is a chronic relapsing condition, which means that many people throughout their experience will go in and out of use, and to be able to give them options within wherever they're at, I think is really important. Recovery is a great option for so many people to be abstinent or to be in recovery in a certain way. And if relapse happens or folks decide to go into use, we need to be able to have support systems there, like harm reduction. We need to be able to test drugs to make sure that if they're in relapse and they're using, this isn't going to be a substance that kills them. We need to have, make sure there's syringes available so that if they use again when they're using, people aren't going to contract horrible, life-altering diseases that will be really painful for them and our families, and also be a really huge cost in our community as a whole.
People seem to think that if you just ignore it, just throw them to the side, that somehow you're not going to be affected by that. But, communicable diseases. You think of the AIDS epidemic, you're talking about San Francisco and just the ravage that happened there, crime, including, it's not a crime to have to go to the bathroom. I'm getting older. This is an issue, not to share too much, but human beings have to do that, and so. And people are social, so they have to be around other people, even when they're suffering by themselves. Mm-hmm. So to think that you can somehow just get rid of these people so I don't have to deal with them, right? Why can't we just keep pushing them out, right? You don't. It's like the blowback for overthrowing governments around the world. There's always going to be a blowback, and we see that.
Well, and just I'll let you speak after this, Ed. And just to kind of add on to that is, people don't have the capacity to look into a lot of these other solutions because our world is very challenging. It's challenging to be in this economy. So I think I also have a lot of empathy for people when we see an issue and all we know is the war on drugs and a punitive response, that's what we will turn to. Meanwhile, there are really incredible solutions that have saved lives, that have gotten people into recovery, that are super beneficial and also really cost beneficial to our communities that people might just not know about, or it's a new concept and it seems a little scary.
Yeah, no, that's important. I should be less judgmental. This is good.
Not saying
I
that,
like it.
Gene.
No, I mean,
We all should.
I think that's so. Ed, you were gonna.
Yeah, first I want to recognize your family's loss.
Thank you. I appreciate
And I
that.
think it's really important to bring that out publicly because that cuts through stigma. It can be anybody's family. It can be any one of us. And it's that kind of grief, I think, that bonds us together. I know a lot of parents, Team Sharing Vermont, who have lost children and family members to overdose. And there's nothing like being around them and kind of sharing in their grief. It's the most beautiful thing to really have the nerve and the desire to experience what they've experienced and join with them in a commitment to do something about this. And I think that's that moral imperative that you're speaking about. And I think everyone has it. I think we're all moral at heart, and we all have a moral imperative to do something about what's happening to us. You know, I don't think it's a binary, this idea of abstinence or harm reduction. And I think that's the problem. I think there are basically the two fields have struggled over decades to establish themselves so fiercely that they feel any sort of like softening of their boundaries threatens their existence. But this is what we need. We need people to soften their boundaries. It's not abstinence or harm reduction. I'm abstinent. There was a time when I was trying to harm myself less. I could relapse tomorrow. Is there going to be a penalty because you're not going to want me around you because I relapse? You know, unfortunately, that's the case sometimes. You know, we have service delivery systems for treatment of addiction and alcoholism that have incredible requirements, usually abstinence. You know, you can get terminated from a program, you can get thrown out of an apartment, you can lose a job, you can go to jail, you know, if you're not abstinent. I mean, you know, we have a punitive way of looking at people who use drugs and a punitive way of looking at people who have addiction. It goes way back to the Harrison Act, where doctors were forbidden to relieve patients suffering from opioid dependence. They had to work with them toward abstinence. They couldn't prescribe opioids. And we've been like in that mode ever since.
And when was that?
1919, a long time ago. We've had the Nixon administration, the war on drugs.
Right.
We have incredibly, totally racist, you know, attack on people of color and hippies.
Yeah.
Anybody who was disruptive. We have a carceral system full of people because of drug use.
Overflowing because of drug use.
Overflowing because of drug use. We have, you know, I like to look at it in terms of. I think about this all the time. I think what we need to do is train ourselves in what I like to call counter-punitive thinking. We need to understand when we're thinking punitively, like you try to understand when you have a racist impulse.
Yeah.
You have to be self-observant. You have to get down in there where you are. Thoughts. We've been conditioned to think punitively. Counter-punitive thinking is something that we have to will and try to do. The other thing I think about all the time is, I like to call it unconditional safety. People with addiction need unconditional safety. It can't be, come to me, I want to help you stop taking drugs, but if you have a positive urine test, there's going to be a penalty. That's punitive thinking. It has to be, come to me, I'll work with you, and I'll meet you where you're at, and we'll move from there. And that's a little bit more harm reduction. You don't have to be abstinent. If you want to achieve abstinence, I'm with you 100%. Everybody here is with you 100%. We'll do that. If you move back to use, you won't be rejected, you won't be penalized, we'll just still be here for you. That's the kind of paradigm we need to strive for. We don't have that today.
Sure.
We have what you saw at town meeting.
Yep.
We have one end over here and one end over there, and people are, you know, afraid if I move toward you, I'll annihilate myself, which is not true.
So, you know, one of the arguments that I hear people say is, well, you're just enabling them. What do you think about that argument? And, you know, we can go into, yeah.
Well, having been a drug user for a long time, I don't need you to enable me.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't need anybody enabling me. And the situation, the whole paradigm has shifted. With the introduction of fentanyl in 2013 until now, you see like a vertical spike in the rate of death, the velocity of death in America. So with that in mind, you know, if I'm guilty of enabling you, and as a side effect, enabling you keeps you alive long enough to, you know, make some progress, well, then I'll enable you. This whole idea of tough love, you know, let's wait till you hit bottom. Well, what's happening is people are dying like way before they hit bottom at an unprecedented rate. That's the thing. Let me just go on one more second.
Please, no.
I am completely drug abstinent. I've been drug abstinent for 41 years. This is like a religion to me. I'm not putting any drugs in my system. I know if I do, I need more and I harm myself. But with that, I can work with people who need to use drugs. I can love them. I can accept them. I can be with them. I can support them. That doesn't threaten me because I have a strong sense of who I am. I have strong boundaries. You know, and that's the kind of like approach we need between these two camps that seemingly are binary, but are not.
Okay, Bella, you have some thoughts?
I do. I also just, in my family, there's a history of substance use disorder, alcoholism, things like that. And I used to really think like, man, it just would be great if they could just go to a place and be forced to get better and you know, that would be the end of it. And after doing a lot of this work and seeing my family really struggle in and out of those spaces, I've really come to know that it doesn't, sobriety at one time doesn't work for every single person. And the idea of at least an overdose prevention center encouraging substance use, like I'm such a data person, our data and our research really doesn't suggest that. The majority of people, overdose prevention centers are not a new concept. They've been around for 35 years, they are around in many countries, and so there's been plenty of research done. And the overwhelming majority of research says that the people who are using substances outside, in public, you know, in the parks, are the folks that are going to be using the overdose prevention center. And they have a preference, a strong preference of using an overdose prevention center over a public space, which is just really wonderful to hear, especially when I think about all the people that I run into when I'm doing my litter cleanup and they're using. Okay,
so let's pivot to an OPC as they're called. Talk to us about to talk about the what we're dealing with, facing. I don't mean dealing with in terms of the creation of a center to prevent overdoses, right? And what what you see the steps are that we're undertaking right now. I know that you're not in charge of that. Teresa Vincina is, but. Just talk about from your perspectives that center and the process and its role.
Do you want me to start? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Well, you were there for all of the legislative work, so.
I'll be quick.
You don't have to be quick. We got 30 minutes.
We do?
We have a long time.
Oh, watch out.
I know. I've watched your show.
Well, it's been a long uphill battle. Don't make any mistake about this. Selena Coburn was 2016. 2017 introduced legislation, veto, boom, dead. I think there was one other one before the one that was vetoed a few years ago. Governor Scott vetoed a bill that had to do with setting up a study committee to see if an overdose prevention center was feasible. Veto. This last
Just even a study.
Even the study, veto. Our hearts were broken, and this last time he vetoed it, and we had the power in the legislature to overturn the veto.
You had a show with Taylor Small and Senator Vahosky.
Yeah.
And it was like in 2024 that that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, they were talking about that. God bless Taylor Small, Tanya Vahosky, other people, Phil Huff, Teresa Wood. There were many people. It was 104 votes, 20 of them from the Senate, 84 from the House that passed, and then that was overturning the veto. But I don't want to get too far into that. It's been a fight, and it continues to be a fight. We had the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee is worth spending 120 seconds on. You know, I was active as a public commenter on that committee, but not a member. And it took, I'm not kidding, 7 or 8 months to get experts in front of that council so they could listen to what an overdose prevention center actually is. The committee unanimously voted to fund an overdose prevention center, and the then chair, Mark Levine, unilaterally, like, reallocated the funds without a vote. It took the Americans.
He was Governor Scott's health commissioner.
Governor Scott's appointed commissioner. It took the ACLU and their attention to have that reversed, and we got our $1.2 million back, and that's the money we have today from Burlington. But make no mistake about it, it's been a fight. And the fight is up against the forces of stigma who don't really value in the way you would expect the human life that's at stake here. Now, and I'm going to hand it over to you in 1 second.
No, take your time. I want to look at my notes.
We've got it in place. Sarah George, and any conversation about this that does not mention Sarah George is really remiss. Sarah George has been an advocate since 2016.
Well, she knows that throwing people into the judicial system is just clogging it all up and not helping those folks. Yeah.
She also has to visit every death in Chittenden County.
Yeah.
So she knows, if anybody knows what's happening at Sarah George, Brendan Del Pozo, Mayor Miro Weinberger, great advocates all along. Now we have Emma. So we have the money from the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee. We have the state's attorney. We have the mayor. We have Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, Tom Dalton, Jessica Kirby, Sarah Ashley, Kate, and yourself. Right, you're on that team too.
Yeah, soon to be. Yeah, not quite yet, but soon.
This is the dream team. This is a team of experienced, seasoned harm reductionists that they already have the population engaged, right? What we need now, and where you come in and the city council comes in, is supporting us when we find the ideal site. The site has to be a site that's accessible. People are not going to hail a cab or, walk 5 miles or get a lift. It needs to be accessible to people, largely a homeless population, that needs to be able to get to this place and be safe.
On foot.
On foot. And there are many locations in Burlington, and
Would your heat map with you had a slide around?
Oh, yeah.
Would that be helpful in terms of this?
Sure. Put that up,
Kevin. If we could see.
Will we see it here?
We will see it. Look at that.
Okay, so that's our hometown. That's 2023.
That's at least the downtown part.
Yeah, and if you look, the The image on the right is just simply an enlargement of the image on the left. Each one of those little circles represents overdoses. This is the Burlington Police Department. The purple, the dark purple in the figure on the left represents 51 overdoses. On the right, it represents from 21 to 30 overdoses. That's basically City Hall Park and the surrounding area. So this is where people are overdosing. And this, believe me, Gene, is a fraction of what's happening, a fraction. There are so many overdoses that occur out there that are reversed by people on the street. We don't even know. These are recorded data, these are recorded overdoses. So if this is like being in City Hall Park and flying up in a helicopter and looking down. This you see like a circle of death, a circle of overdose. The Overdose Prevention Center ideally will be in there somewhere where people can walk to it. And I think Bella can talk a little bit about, getting this public drug use, the disposal of drug use supplies, getting it all, not all off the street, but making a big dent in it and getting it indoors. Now that's just one aspect of the benefit. What happens when these people are indoors?
What happens?
Well, what happens is what I like to call unconditional safety. And you have them. And these are disenfranchised, persecuted, stigmatized against, people with arrest histories, people with histories of abuse, traumatized people. You give them a place where there's no expectations, no requirements, and they're loved and safe. You know what? They come back. Just let me, one more thing.
Go for it, Ed.
This is germane to what we're talking about. I'm not going to get into any of the numbers. This is from On Point, New York City.
Okay.
I have to read this.
Which is an overdose prevention center in New York City that's been in operation for 2 years, I believe now.
Since it's 3 years now.
3 years.
3 years, and actually, I think that 7 Days did a big report on it.
They did a decent report.
Yeah.
Now this is from the Year 2 report that just came out. This is beautiful. This is what we're looking for. Anecdotally, many participants reported in Year 2 that they do not use anywhere other than the OPC. Participants have changed their routines and behavior to align their use with the hours of the program. They report that the safety and support they receive in the OPC has helped them understand how dangerous their use is. They do not want to use in public, and they do not want to use alone. They want to survive, they want to be healthy, they do not want to continue use long term. We saved 683 lives by preventing overdoses from becoming fatal. Now, that's what you can measure, but what you can't measure and what they can't measure is how many, that's overdose deaths they've prevented. How many overdoses have they prevented? I spoke with the director, Pia. She told me, listen to what she told me. She said, Ed, we had a rash of what's called red stamp fentanyl. Red skull fentanyl. So it's a little envelope with a red skull stamped on it. And it's a certain batch of fentanyl. There were people overdosing all over Manhattan from red dose fentanyl. People in the Overdose Prevention Center were using the same drug and they didn't have one overdose.
How is that?
Right, good question. How is that? How is that? Because they're not injecting quickly alone in some restroom or behind some store. They're testing the drug. They're seeing it has a high potential of fatality. They're doing a test shot. They have people around them, and they didn't have one overdose. So that's the theimmeasurable part. How many overdoses are prevented besides overdose deaths? So that's, There's a very high percentage of people.
Sure, you can go to those figures if you want.
A very high percentage of people, 83% of people who utilized services at On Point also accepted wraparound services. That could be anything from housing to medical care to medication for opioid use disorder, counseling. Very, very high percent are moving on to other services.
All the things that are part of recovery.
Yeah.
Right? Recovery is like, I mean, it's a process, and that requires things. So the Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, they actually have a location, not an OPC, but a location on like Pine and Bank. What do they do there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I talked to Jessica Kirby, one of the folks who works over there, this morning, just to ask her a couple more information, because I really didn't actually know about the center until recently. So Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, VCJR, they've been open for about 3 years. And they have seen about 300 clients over that time. And those clients, from what Jess told me, they are clients for life. So they come in and out of services. There's not kind of a conclusion to that space. And really what they do in that space is they have a partnership with Johnson Health Center. So they have medical staff there every day, or every day that they're open, which is 4 days a week. Providing services like referrals to medication for opioid use disorder, wound care, which has become a really big concern with people using substances, mental health care services as well. And then their primary job is to be a case management, on-demand case management service. So someone comes in who has been using substances and they have been justice involved, needs support in some way, because there's a lot of different logistical things that happen when you're justice involved.
Yeah.
And it can really drastically change your day and your life. They will be there to support them in that way. They also do a lot of transportation. They'll take someone to help them pick up their medication for opioid use disorder. They are an incredible service. And I will also say that every Thursday when I go to that area, I really never find any litter or trash in that area. And I feel like that just goes to show how impactful and successful VCJR has been, and how they're such a great person, or great organization rather, to be running this overdose prevention center. I have all the faith in this organization. They're really perfect for it. When they have had incidents with neighbors or clients in the area, it's been really rare, it's been really infrequent, and it's usually addressed really, really quickly. And they're not known for having a pattern of that in any way.
Right.
So I have a lot of faith that they will be really adamant in making sure there's really positive relationships with neighbors, with businesses in the surrounding area.
Yeah, that's really important. I mean, it's not my ward, but I haven't heard, and you hear and you get, because the whole council gets complaints about like either areas or particular properties that there are problems with, and that is not a site that I've heard that from. So that's really, really positive.
If you had a genie come out of a bottle, and the genie said, I'm the genie of overdose prevention, do you have a wish about the perfect provider? And he said, yes, we want the perfect provider. It would be Tom Dalton, and it would be Jessica Kirby. I know a lot of people. You cannot find anybody. I don't know Sarah Ashley that well, but I do know Tom well, and I do know Jessica well. They've been in this field for decades. Tom and Jess created a Safe Recovery, the Safe Syringe program.
Okay.
They were there for, I think, 20 years and moved over to Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform. They actually have the community we're talking about practically engaged already. There's more people than they have engaged. But they have a level of trust in the drug-using community that is unparalleled. And if this place is going to work, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to have to be perfect so people go and the word spreads on the street. Go there, you'll be safe. They're the real deal. And that's what Tom and Jess bring to the table.
But this is, a center to be able to safely inject as part of an overdose prevention process is a piece that we do not have now. So they're being perfect, them providing these wraparound services, all this stuff is necessary, but it's still insufficient, and that's why we've moved. Why we need to be developing this.
Exactly.
And this would be this is actually a pilot program, right? Because Burlington cannot be the sole place in the state. I think that you had another slide where it's like we had 22% of the state.
We have the highest number of overdoses and overdose deaths in Vermont, and that's why Burlington was chosen for the initial overdose
see that slide? I
prevention.
just think a visual would be really helpful. Oh, here we
So
go.
I think actually, Kevin, the one with the graph, the pie chart, is the one. I think it was like slide 4. There we go. So we can see it says Chittenden on there had 22.4. Obviously, Burlington
22.4%.
is a center, but people are living rough and shooting up and dealing with drugs all over the county.
Well, one of the things that happens in rural areas, and people from Canada have spoken about this in British Columbia, there's mobile overdose prevention centers. Howard Center has an incredible van. If you've ever seen that van, it would be along those lines. Only it would, people would actually be utilizing the van the same way as they utilize a brick and mortar center.
Yeah, the idea is that we test, we pay attention to what's happening, and then we make the adjustments that are necessary so that we get this right, because being humans means that we make mistakes.
And just to add on to that, I've gotten the question many times, like, why don't we have a mobile location instead of a fixed location in Burlington? And there's a lot of reasons behind that. A big one is accessibility. I think there's clearly a concentrated population of people using substances in Burlington, using substances in a public place in Burlington. So we really want that to be a regular, accessible place. There's also operational stability, which is really, really important. It'll be really great and easy to collect data on this one specific population we're working with every single day, which there's $300,000 allocated to study the Overdose Prevention Center in Burlington too, which is fantastic. By the way, none of this money is from taxpayer dollars. 2025 to 2028 is paid for by the opioid abatement or opioid settlement funds,
which was funded by drug companies, legal drug companies, pushing poison and profiting off of it, and now having to be sued by states to say, what are you doing?
It's true accountability. I feel like we rarely see that in this country. We see harm caused and then real action taken to address the victims of that cause. That's yet another reason why I really believe in this, is that this is actually us holding those folks accountable and creating services to the people who were harmed.
So,
No, I was just saying, well put. The other thing, Bella mentioned research. We have, the research team is headed by Dr. Brandon Marshall, who's an epidemiologist specializing in overdose prevention from Brown University. And Dr. Marshall is actually conducting the research in New York and in Rhode Island, so he has all 3 sites in America where there are overdose prevention centers, and he's an esteemed, nationally acclaimed researcher. So the data that we pull out of Burlington will be reliable data, and will hopefully, pave the way for more centers in cities the size of Burlington.
This is still a big lift, and I know I saw Dr. Marshall on a webinar that was put on as part of the engagement process. But what other type of community engagement activities are going on?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a survey that VCGR is hosting geared towards people who are currently using substances in the city of Burlington, and that's really going to tell us a lot of where we need to really focus those services. It's also asking questions like, what would they benefit from these services in these spaces? Because our best source of data is people who are actually experiencing this. And then there's currently a community survey that anyone in Burlington and outside of Burlington can fill out. It took me about 5 minutes. It's very
a good
fast.
survey. Yeah.
It's a great survey, very clear, and it talks about things like, where would we want to see this in our community?
Well, look at that.
Oh, there it is.
We
yes.
even have how to take the survey on that.
Yeah, how to
so
take the survey. And
I think people
yeah.
can put their phones up to their screen, and they could take a shot at that and be able to take the survey.
yeah, and just to say this, the second link is Vermont Harm Reduction Advocates website. On that website, we have a page dedicated to frequently asked questions for the Overdose Prevention Center. I added an answer to a question I actually got today from that, so I'm constantly updating that, and that includes a timeline for the Overdose Prevention Center, and when was it approved? What are the next steps? What does this process look like? So I really recommend people go to that website to get your questions answered. And get that engagement.
Yeah. So I think that this is the FAQ.
That's the shortened
this
version.
This is the shortened version. Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of type on it, but and we just. Passed unanimously the contract with the provider, with Vermonters for Criminal Justice. It was not painless, but
I'm telling you, it never is.
No, it wasn't, and it isn't. But it's important work. Teresa did a really good job, and I think that one thing that I appreciated from her presentation was her willingness to answer hard questions, to then, as well as have a bigger view. And then that combination of being able to move into the weeds and then out into the onto the drone to take the picture is something that is really important. So
she's the right person for that position, for sure.
Yeah. So the engagement, I think, is now moving into the community, more of a community setting.
Well, just to talk for a second about community engagement, one of the first advocates for the Overdose Prevention Center is actually the Unitarian Universalist Society. That the board of directors and the Reverend Karen G. Johnston came out and crafted a beautiful statement in strong support of the establishment of the Overdose Prevention Center, and the last three words are "in our midst." That this should be in our midst. It's beautiful, and I would hope that some of the other faith-based organizations in the Burlington area will take a very close look at this and join the UU in supporting the Overdose Prevention Center.
I know that the First Congregational Church on Winooski Avenue has been doing very, very good work for homeless folks, for folks with mental challenges and other.
Ben and Jerry's also came out very, very forcefully in favor of an overdose prevention center.
I mean, what was interesting, and I know it sort of tangentially in terms of the UU, it was a very deliberate process because, the Howard Needle Exchange or
Safe
Recovery, is just 2 doors down
on Clark Street,
and we have had complaints about really the collateral impact of it on the street for a while. It's not uniform from my perspective and what I have gathered from people on the street, but there is a significant pushback on that. And folks go and then they hang out on the UU. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful place at the head of Church Street, and that has placed a lot of pressure. And hard pressure on employees there in particular, as well as on other people. So the engagement and the discernment that people had to do within that congregation and in that leadership was really, really hard, and it was very, very thoughtful. But I'm pleased that my faith community had the ability to say, yes, we understand all of that. We can hold it all, and we can move forward, because at the end of the day, individual lives in our community, in our neighborhood, in our own area here, this refuge is going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, just to kind of circle back, the great thing about an overdose prevention center that we will most likely not see is that, you know, people, what we see in some syringe service programs is that they grab supplies, which I love syringe service programs. We could have an entire show on the benefits to the community. And I will say that an overdose prevention center doesn't just send folks on their way with these supplies. They recommend folks come in, they use their services. There's going to be a warm place to hang out and to come down from using substances and to store items. So it really will be a community hub to bring people in, rather than have folks loitering or being out in public in that space.
We have about 3.5 minutes left, so we're like done. But lay out a little bit more of the services that will be in the center, so people can get a better feeling for that.
Yeah, so there's going to be. It's definitely not just going to be a place for people to use drugs. There will also be drug testing. There will be safe supplies. There'll be educational resources for things like, you know, safer drug use, safe sex supplies. There will be a smoke room, which is a really important feature.
What is a smoke room? Smoke
room, yeah. So it's a private space for people to inhale drugs or smoke drugs instead. The majority of people actually smoke drugs, so it'll be a place for folks to use that space, and it'll be a space that has a specific airbag system, so that won't come into other spaces, which is very, very important.
Yes, it is.
There will also be referrals for recovery spaces. There'll be, TJR has on-demand case management work. A lot of that will also be in that space. So, you know, when we say an overdose prevention center, overdose prevention means so many different things.
Right.
This is really created to really embrace people and wrap them around with services and education that will make them not die from an overdose. And be able to not just live but thrive in our community, which many really struggle to do.
This is what we want. You know, it's a tragic thing to be out on the street.
It is.
and to see people in their struggles out there publicly, and to not have the resources to be able to deal with it. So this is a huge problem that requires massive resources, and we're lucky that we're using non-tax dollars to be able to deal with this, based on the funds that people who profited off of the death are having to contribute, because Burlington right now is paying an ungodly amount of money on services, on fire, on police, right? So I am hoping that this will reduce those costs greatly. Yeah.
On point, $20 million saved in taxpayers by responding to overdose without calling emergency medical or police.
And that's
$20 million.
But from where?
That's in 1 year.
In New York City.
In New York City, 1 year.
I think we're spending $6 to $8 million every year in Burlington.
The same thing. We're going to see a lot of savings to the city, because they're not going to be responding to as many emergencies as they are.
Hospital costs too. The costs of HIV to the community is huge when folks contract that. So there's going to be, I really believe, a lot of cost savings and so many benefits to this. This will not be the magic bullet to the overdose crisis. I'm not going to say that, and I think it will be very helpful in aiding and supporting and saving Burlingtonians' lives. I really believe that.
Thank you. Magic bullets, like other magical thinking, are something that should be reserved for big screen movies and fantasy that we read. But we have to deal with doing the best we can to create the programs that will work, and to test them, and then to look and see what else. That's what that study is all about too, so that we can move on.
If I might say, I guess we're talking about the long haul. We have to be in this for the long haul. This is going to be a commitment. And the idea of funding the Overdose Prevention Center, the opioid settlement money from the opioid settlement with the Sackler family and other distributors and manufacturers will be going on for another 14 years. And so that money will be coming into Vermont for another 14 years. If Burlington can organize and request yearly, you know, with a loud voice, that money be continued to be allocated to the Overdose Prevention Center, that could happen. But we have to go about making that happen.
Yeah.
And
we will pay for the consequences of the drug crisis regardless.
Way more, too.
Yes.
Way more money.
So we have to do that, and 14 years comes in the blink of an eye, comes and goes in the blink of an eye. So
and that money could very easily be misspent. So it's the voices of the people that will ensure that that money is spent on our neighbors most at risk for death.
and allow us to be able to see how this project will work and can improve, so that we can do this in other places and it becomes institutionalized, just like all the other stuff. I think we probably have run out of time, but I don't see anybody here to tell me to quiet up. So I'll just say thank you both.
Thank
Bella,
you.
Ed, this was great.
Thank you.
This
And
is
thank you.
this is a really hard subject for us, and to learn more, please check out the QR code and the website to take the survey. Check out the Harm Reduction Advocates FAQs, and we will see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you.